this session we also had to play a little bit of defense and saw some bills that may have infringed on private property rights pop up and made sure that our voice was heard loud and clear that we were opposed to these policies. So Jen, you want to tell us a little bit about those pieces of legislation that we stopped?
So those two pieces that we had that popped up that we were like, this is kind of a significant change for us. One of them, it would have allowed for cities and counties with a population of less than 75,000 to enact short-term rental restrictions. And this is just legislation that passed a few years ago where it said that, cities and counties cannot do anything with short-term rentals. In some of our summer communities, if I could say that right, we find the prevalence or they feel the need to change this legislation, which is why the 75,000 or less kind of came about in this legislation. But the short-term rental discussion is something that takes a lot of different paths when we have those conversations. It's private property rights versus renter versus, owner. So we really have to be cautious when we're making any changes to the short-term rental laws in the future. We're not saying that at some point they might not be necessary, but we really felt that this was kind of the wrong strategy for that.
Absolutely. And we also saw some rent control legislation introduced this year. So several years ago, we passed legislation that prohibited cities, municipalities from implementing rent control restrictions, and saw a bill this year that wanted to eliminate that law. And so I think this year it came up right before our Hill Day, and so we had about 300 of our members from across the state come up to the Hill and talk to their legislators about the negative implications of this bill.
Yeah, and that was really incredible from all of our members that came to Hill visits. Thank you so much. It makes such a huge impact with the legislators to hear your real stories about what rent control would do in your community, what it would do for the property owners, what it actually does to the renters themselves, and some of the negative impacts that we've seen across the country with cities that implement rent control. So it was a very interesting bill that came up. It had bipartisan support. I don't think it's the last we have seen of it. I don't think the idea behind it was necessarily something that was intentional. I think what people are trying to come up with is ideas for affordable housing, and which we are always going to talk about. We are always welcome to new ideas and strategies. Again, though, we just thought this was kind of the wrong direction to take on it.
Absolutely. So obviously, very busy legislative session. These were just a few of the highlights. Monitored several other bills, but thankful that ours got across the finish line, our priority legislation, with unanimous bipartisan support. And so that really speaks to our advocacy efforts, all of you coming to Hill Day and advocating for not only your profession, but every Iowan across the state is truly something special. So we appreciate all you do. Again, we always want to hear your feedback on the implementation of this legislation. If you have any ideas for affordable housing development going forward, please reach out to Jen or myself. We are always happy to lend an ear and see what we can do up at the State House.
Yep. Thank you all.